Yes, over to you.
Okay.
Good afternoon to respected dignitaries, guests of the day, HOIs of various departments, faculty members, and my dear audience. We would also like to welcome our audience from Germany. I, Srishti Verma, and my co-host Shrishtika Tiwari from BA Honours English 5th semester welcome you. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the 12th day of the 30-hour workshop on Path to Developed India, Awaken Youth, Skill Development, and Strong Leadership. विकसित भारत की राह जागृत युवा कौशल विकास एवं सुदृढ़ नेतृत्व. Returning to yesterday's session, Dr. Nilofar Shakir enlightened us on the importance of effective communication for leaders in today's business world.
I am pleased and privileged to introduce our Honorable Director of Amity School of Languages, Professor Dr. Kumkum Ray. Her visionary leadership and unwavering commitment have been instrumental in shaping the success of our institution. With sincere admiration and gratitude, I extend a warm invitation to our exceptional head of department, whose brilliance and inspiration have been a constant source of motivation.
Ma'am, you're muted.
Good afternoon, dear participants, and welcome Dr. Divyaraj, Amiya. It is such a privilege to have you for this workshop and to get your views. This is the second time I will be hearing you, and therefore I will not take any time but hand over the mic so that the participants can get to hear you more than I wasting their time on usual introductions. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Professor Dr. Kumkum Ray ji and Shraddha Srivastav and other co-organizers for giving me this second opportunity. So it will be a kind of sequel. So you all have heard
Excuse me,
last
sir.
time.
Sir, please give us time to introduce you.
Okay,
Yes.
now you
Ladies
can.
and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Divyaraj Amiya. Sir has an impressive academic background. He studied history, political science, and geography in Patna and Delhi. He completed his MPhil in German Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Since April 2004, he has been a dedicated Hindi lecturer in the Department of Indology at the Asia Orient Institute of the University of Tübingen. Mr. Amiya managed the Karmandu Shishir Sahodkar, a unique literary archive that houses an extensive collection of magazines from the 1880s, primarily in Hindi and Urdu languages. His areas of interest include South Asian literature, history, modern South Asia, and recent identity debates. He has contributed significantly to academic discourse, including his Questioning Normal Daily Life towards a New Approach presentation at the Budapest Degrowth Conference 2016. His interview on Patient Means Having Time for Others on the Change in Time Culture in India, published in Z Politicians magazine, has also been influential, challenging conventional notions of time, poverty, and transforming human activities into work. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Divyaraj Amiya to share his insights on the fascinating topic, A New South Asian Studies for New Global Challenges, Whys and Hows. His extensive knowledge research experience and dedication to his field promise to provide us with a compelling and insightful presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Srishtika, for this long introduction. And just a kind of footnote that this website is going to be updated and some new information will be also there. But but all that is more important that now we are face to face with each other via technology, and then we can come to know more about each other, more than what only technology provides us. So thanks again. And again, I express my gratitude to Professor Dr. Kumkum Reji, Shraddha Srivastav, and all other co-organizers. It's a kind of sequel to the topic that I covered last time. The last time my topic was relevance of South Asian studies in the age of artificial intelligence and ecological collapse. So it is a sequel that it's an attempt to answer the question that what do we lose, or what is how big is the loss if you don't know about South Asian countries, its history and society. So the PowerPoint is with Shraddha Srivastav. I'd request her to just start the presentation. And so the key question is that why should anybody study about the history and society and politics and history of institutions, main events of South Asia and South Asian countries? And then I would like to move towards the PowerPoint. Shraddha, I cannot see the PowerPoint.
Just a minute, sir. Just 1 minute.
Okay. So why is it important? Because recently we are facing a huge crisis also in the academic world, also in the world of, say, knowledge institutions. Why should students come to us when everything is now available per mouse click? So that is the biggest question. And this is not only a problem or a crisis that we are facing at various levels in Germany, but also in other countries. So what our role can be here, that we can just try to find out new ways how to make South Asian studies relevant. So that's why the my last talk was about the relevance of South Asian studies. And then in order to underline its importance, we have to go back to the background. I mean, why is it important, and how can we face the modern challenges, and how the lack of knowledge about South Asian countries is actually, we can do it only at our own risk. So I have tried to define that how is the new South Asian studies different from the old South Asian studies. So we can move to the slide number 1, that how is it different? I mean, the traditional South Asian studies, it covers, say, main events, main personalities, history of main social and political institutions. So that's how you teach about. For example, I teach about, whenever I cover these classes, that is these courses. So from Indus Valley civilization, or also the earlier settlements, then you come to Vedic society, so Indus Valley, then Vedic, then post-Vedic, then you come to Maurya Empire, Gupta Empire. I mean, that's the sequence of events that we have to so teach our students. So that is the traditional South Asian studies. That's how you teach. I mean, you have to know the basics, as it is called. What is different about new South Asian studies? That will come to know in the second slide. So can you move to the second slide, Shraddha? So why new South Asian studies? It's not only, it doesn't only highlight significant events, figures, institutions in the region, society and history, but also brings to forefront experiences from its 5,000-year-old history to address current global problems. That means while we are facing modern challenges like ecological collapse or social inequality, or a stress in different sections of society, middle class especially, technophilia, this is a new term, it means that as if only technocratic solution will solve the problems of mankind. So the term is it's technophilia, the love of technology. So this is a kind of wave, it's a movement that keeps resurfacing. In 100 years ago, this movement emerged in Italy. It was called futurist movement. So they were worshippers of speed. That means technology will, I mean, that steam engine, then steamship, you have railways, you had, I mean, beginnings of the attempts to have this aeroplanes. So automobiles. So this movement was called futurist movement. So they were worshippers of technology, and they were fully convinced that by the end of the century, we will land in paradise. And after that, immediately after that, this movement of futurism, they were within 20 years 2 world wars. So this movement went underground. It took again some time to recover, and this is again there. So this movement is called technophilia. Among others, we can go back to 5,000 years old history of South Asia and the reservoir of realized solutions that might equip us with new insights into limitations of the proposed solutions. Very often, that's most important, very often proposed solutions were and are already part and parcel of normal daily life in different phases, regions, and say countries of South Asia. Thanks. Next slide, please. So this is actually not to argue for that we have the solution, because any claim of solutionism is itself a problem. It's about that, then what? I mean, because these solutions were part and parcel of, this is the claim of my presentation today, that there were many solutions which are proposed by the governments, by the activists, by the NGOs, and these solutions were already there in the history of South Asia. So that will help us a lot, that we can see the limitations of these realized proposed solutions so that we can move into third stage, I mean, from the second stage. So to again underline that there is no claim of finding the ultimate solution to all the problems, but why knowing about South Asia is so crucial for us at this stage of the history of mankind. One more reason that makes South Asian studies unique, that is this simultaneous presence of different phases of human history at the same time. South Asia is home to not only Adivasi communities, but some of them are still pre-agricultural and pre-cattle rearing communities. Thus, we have, on the one hand, the hubs of most modern and developed branches of global economy, that means software industry, centers, and space sciences. And on the other hand, we have communities like Birhors in Jharkhand, Jarwa in Andaman Nicobar, and Chenchu in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. They belong to 95% of history of mankind. That means recently these are the, say, findings, or these are the facts, anthropological facts, that researchers actually now they have pointed out that civilization is a kind of exception, and pre-agriculture and pre-cattle rearing phase is 95. That's the rule. That's the longest phase of history of mankind, and that was the most relatively stable kind of say society, and they knew how to deal with resources in a far superior way compared to our civilization. So that's why this longest phase of history of mankind has again become important, and that's why that makes South Asian studies interesting, that we have still say hunter-gatherers, and they coexist, within quotes, coexist with say agricultural communities and post-agriculture, that means industrial communities. So the time window is open for coming few decades only in South Asia, where we can undertake a journey to different phases of the history of mankind at the same time. These communities show us that being human doesn't mean automatically, I mean, there's a kind of automatism, that mankind has gone to that extent that it has become it is an enemy of nature. But that's not true. I mean, had that been true, then Adivasi would have also done the same thing what the civilized populations do. So that's the kind of unabated destruction of nature. But that doesn't take place. That means this myth can be also questioned very easily the more you come to know about these Adivasi communities in India. And it can be compared also with the life of other, say, centers of civilizations, where such communities were either exterminated or assimilated to a great extent. So this is again one of the uniquenesses of South Asian, say, civilizations, and it's still open to explanations that why these communities, they form around 8 to 10% of total population of India, and also I would say in other countries also, neighboring countries. So they could serve, not only they could survive, they're still there, and it makes it possible. That's very interesting. Say how to say that if you speak a variant of Hindi, you can use the same Hindi, a variant of Hindi, to speak to somebody who is actually working in the most developed branch of most modern industry, that is software, and I can use the other variant of the same Hindi to to converse with the members of hunter-gatherers in Birhor, with Birhors in Jharkhand. So one in the same language, or if you have if you have good command over, say, modern South Asian languages, for example, Hindi, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, then you can cover these two poles of human history. So that makes, again, learning these languages much more interesting compared to any other modern language. For example, in Europe, I mean, you don't have any, say, hunter-gatherer communities who speak German, or with whom you can communicate in German, with whom you can communicate in English, with whom you can communicate in Japanese. But you can do this when you are good at Hindi, or if you are, or Kannada, or Malayalam, or so far I know, Telugu. So these are the advantages of right now living in India, living in South Asia, that we can cover both ends of history of mankind, speaking one in the same language. At the same time, you have to be conscious of the fact that they are variants of the same language, but it makes it much more easier for me to communicate with the oldest form of history of mankind, which is, here I must qualify the statement, Birhors are not the oldest form of human community. They are the contemporary societies. They are different in a way that their way of dealing with resources is far superior to our ways of dealing with resources. So that's what makes doing South Asian studies unique and at the same time so important. Thank you, Shraddha. Then can we go to the next slide? So this presentation has been organized in 3 parts. I would say 2 parts. I mean, first 10 slides are about 8 whys of new South Asian studies. And the second part is about 7 hows. I mean, why we should study, say, in this way, South Asian, why should we do it in this way? I mean, not only sequence of events and important personalities and institutions, but we can do it also at the same time. We can come from the other end. For example, we can discuss ecological destruction, women's question, caste question, say question of religion, all these questions. So that might be unique feature, and these are the 8 explanations why new South Asian studies is needed. So that is from first to 10 slides, and then you have from 10 to 20. How can we do it? So it's only a kind of suggestion, and it's not only how to say this. There shouldn't be any kind of fixation that it's only 8 whys or it's only 7 hows. I mean, it is at least there are at least 8 whys, at least 7. It can be more, or it can be at times questioned properly. Then it can be also lesser than that. No? And then at the end of presentation, you will come to know about some keywords. Perhaps you will be able to understand these new keywords. Number 1, that will the takeaway, and number 2, you'll also perhaps be able to question basic assumptions. For example, work, time, self. Perhaps we can also understand or the content of these signifiers in a new way. So thank you very much. We can go to the then first part of our presentation. So 8 whys, or second stage search for solutions, or you can also name it then what. No? So the dreams of ecological movements are actually to have negative carbon emission. It is already a reality in Bhutan. And also its project, I mean, for example, the question is ecological crisis. And then that's why I started with Bhutan, because this is, say, the area covered in the forest is almost more than 60%, and it's already, how to say, in its constitution, anchored in the constitution, that it cannot be in any way, it can be reduced than that. So forest cover, the number of, I mean, as a kind of side note, the number of monks in Bhutan is much more than the number of soldiers. And at the same time, they try to question the traditional way of defining happiness or defining progress and growth. So Bhutan is the first country which globally, on the global stage, for the first time questioned this traditional notion of gross domestic production. So they came up with the concept of gross domestic happiness. So not per capita income. What is our advantage if we do South Asian studies? Then we can see then what, because if now we can see the limitations today. If you go to Bhutan, then, or perhaps the, say, unstoppable march of wage slavery, that people, the moment they come to know the fact that for the same kind of work you get 3 or 4 times say money, then you become restless. That is, and you are absolutely reserveless. So, and you have nothing else but to sell your labor, that is your skill or your labor power. Then you have become a wage slave. So this movement, that production of certain transformation of peasants into wage slaves, it started in Western Europe, and it came, I mean, it knew no boundaries, and now it is also in Bhutan. So there are so many things that can be questioned while accepting that this is the solution proposed by so many activists in different parts of the world. But this is a reality in Bhutan right now. So you can visit this country, you can know about this solution, how far they are successful and how far they are not. So it's also with the history of South Asian societies that there are many proposed solutions, and those solutions were realized and how much they were successful or not successful or partly successful, or some unintended results where there all that can be catalogued and properly studied. For example, if you question, whenever you question discuss women's question, then we have feticide, dowry deaths. We have, other problems of mainstream societies. They can be very easily questioned if you know about Khasi community in the northeast of India. In Khasi community in northeast of India, that's in Meghalaya, the youngest daughter inherits the family property and children are named after the mother, not after the father. So there was a movement in Khasi community in Shillong. I came to know about it. And that's again as interesting as any interesting science fiction, but it's a reality again in the case of South Asia, that there was a movement to let's build a new home. That meant that we should introduce patriarchy in the Khasi community, because the the founder of this movement felt very odd that why we are so different from other, say, mainstream society. And the relaxed way, especially the way in which society reacted to this movement, that's more interesting perhaps, because it's not being questioned. This matrilineal society, it is, say, it doesn't have any kind of, say, untouchability, caste system. So women's movements should and also the ecological destruction is not that much advanced as much in the case of our societies. So this is again one concrete example while discussing, just like ecological question, if we question women's question, then we can know more about the limitations of these proposed solutions if you come to know more about this society, how does it function, and how much is there to learn from them, not to teach them. Honor killing is also another, just one sec, yeah. So honor killing is also one important problem, especially in traditional societies. But we know about Bhagoria Mela among Bhils in Rajasthan, where young couples elope and they come back after 2-3 weeks, and both the families are already prepared, and the marriage takes place. I mean, there is no question of say that the honor of the family was at stake and there should be some kind of price that must be paid. That doesn't happen. So these are the communities like Bhils, or you can say Khasis. So from where we can see that all these proposed solutions, how far they are successful, but one can see concrete examples that they have been realized and they are part and parcel of the normal daily life. Thank you. Then the next, then we have, say, around the next question is, can we go to the next slide? So this is, the next question is about religion. For example, 8 world religions, or 8 to 10, it depends on how do you count them. They emerged from South Asia itself. And the core teachings of Buddhism and Jainism believe neither in gods nor in Vedas. Some of them do not have faith in eternal, unchanging soul, in particular also, or a faith in a particular holy book. So whenever you question religion in modern day world, then we should be aware of these traditions, which are definitely they push us in the right direction of redefining what we mean by religion, because there is no holy book or one single holy book, and there is no say importance of that at the center of your teachings there should be some god, or in the case of Buddhism there is no concept of unchanging eternal soul. So all these, if you know about these traditions, South Asian traditions, then you need to redefine religion. And therefore again South Asian studies become important. And the sub point is here that because of diversity of religions, there was a tradition of interfaith dialogue, and the level of discourse might be something new in the West, but it was older and relatively more peaceful, say, precedents in South Asia. Then the fourth point is this glorification of technology. There we have Asur community from Jharkhand. And in one of his last books, Ram Dayal Munda narrates the story of voluntary reduction of the use of iron blast furnaces technology by the Asur community and its celebration in its epics and rituals. and the book is called Adi Dharam. There he has translated in directly from, say, their language into Hindi and English. So this and the Soso Wonga, these are the names of the books that he published in the last phase of his life, and this is one of the most important works that he has done, direct translation from Mundari into Hindi and English. So why did they stop using this iron technology way back then and voluntarily? That's very important, because this epic tells us that they realize that use of this blast furnaces, this iron technology, is actually leading to destruction of both community life and nature. And this all has been described vividly in their epics. And imagine that something similar takes place today in the case of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, robotics, or nanotechnology. So this technophilia, I mean, they could get rid of it, and this is well documented response. And there might be many different ways of responding to, say, this technophilia or modern technologies. One of them we have in South Asia, and that is the answer response of Asur community from Jharkhand. So thank you. The next slide, please. This is the first, second, yeah. Then we have among Newar communities, Newar community in Japan, this is the festival called Janko. That means if you are 66 years, 6 months, and 6 days old, 77 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, 88 years, 8 months, and 8 days old, the radius of the community or the village that celebrates your turning, say, 88 years, 8 months, and 8 days old, it's a huge festival, and it's called Janko. So it's in Nepal, and we can compare this kind of, because the older you grow, you come closer to the gods, and that's the belief, and that's how one can learn a lot from South Asian societies when it comes to aging society, aging population, how to deal with them, because very often the most active years of life are spent at the workplace, and after that you become more or less, even if it is unsaid, burdened to the to the, how to say, that the crisis is more acute in the case of Japan, because they have the people who, I mean, they have the span of life longest. At the same time, it's being debated in Japan itself that how to deal with this aging population, and additionally their loneliness. And at the same time, where at the center of the life of a society is only, say, how much productive you are, and your product, this is kind of terror of productivity is at the center of your life, then we can learn a lot from other communities where growing old can be celebrated. Because in Japan, this phenomenon is called kodokushi. Kodokushi means that the people have earned sufficient money, and all the bank transactions take place automatically, and you have your private sphere which is respected by your neighbors and your friends. And once you die, then it takes around 2 to 3 days, then your dead body stinks, and the neighbors come to know about it, and these dead bodies have to be taken care of. So there are so many firms in Japan which are working day and night just somehow to remove the dead bodies. So you die alone and lonely, even in the land of such lands or countries where milk and honey flows. So, and this loneliness, especially of in the old days, is a huge problem, a bigger problem, so to say, because the amount of the kind of helplessness that you face at that stage of your life. And this phenomenon is called kodokoshi in Japan. So you can again come back to South Asia and discuss aging population, its problem, with a concrete example from Nepal, which is called Janko. So there we can learn a lot. I mean, many sim societies, be it in India or be it in Europe or be it in Japan. So can it be an answer? Then the sixth question is, for example, hierarchies or automation. Shall the automation lead to the abolition of hierarchies, or shall it reinforce and reproduce them? There was a huge debate in 1990s around, say, end of the last century, and it was called End of Work. So there was this article, this book was published by Jeremy Rifkin, and it was answered by Bob Black, that he says that contrary to the abolition of work in the age of automation and, say, artificial intelligence, it will not lead to abolition of hierarchy, but it will lead to a kind of new caste system that is called alpha, beta, delta, and gamma. And the way he argues, it reminds us of the Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And his readings of by Kantovsky, he points out that many key ideas of Aldous Huxley's magnum opus were inspired by his readings of ancient texts from India. So it's very important here to point out that these, so this notion of authority, which is coercive, which is violent, is present in a kind of image of the future of mankind in the works of George Orwell, which is basically coercion power. But the notion of power in the case of Aldous Huxley is exactly opposite to that. It's based on that after automation, after increasing, basic income has been guaranteed, it is possible to realize all your dreams with the help of modern software or artificial intelligence. So this kind of authority will be new kind of authority. It will not be based on power and coercion, but exactly opposite. It might realize your, the absolute love will become absolute control. I mean, your ideas are not at all a huge problem for the society or the governments, but this kind of power has been conceived by Aldous Huxley in his novel, that what kind of society shall it be like. And Jeremy Rifkin was of the opinion, and this technophilia or this kind of futurism or new futurism keeps coming back, that is going to be the solution. But that's why this article by Bob Black, I have given at the end of my presentation also a list of bibliography. Then you can go and Google this article also, that he points out that it will be like alpha, beta, delta, and gamma. So again, it reminds us of the hierarchies and how, South Asia, knowledge about South Asian institutions, they are again important to so prevent the reemergence of any kind of coercion and power upon us. So thank you. The next slide. This is yeah. So for example, this is the questioning work and time, because these are the axioms. That's how we understand it, what is time. And what actually happens, that this restlessness that we face in modern civilization, that each and every minute should be properly invested. I mean, not a single minute should be wasted. Was it an anthropological constant? Was it always like this, that we are spending our time, and instead of that we could have spent it somewhere else, which is much more productive? So this is called opportunity cost in the language of economics, that we have constant tension, that right now we could have done something else, where we can use time much more useful, and the investment of time can be much more useful. And this is also this you can find also in the way the primary meaning of the term Kala changes in the history of India. For example, the primary meaning of Kal in Veda is opportune moment. It's not Kal, doesn't mean the primary meaning of Kal in modern South Asian languages, Hindi is the end, the death. And so you can see that how the history of the change in the primary meaning of one and the same term, that is Kala in Rig Veda. In Vedas, you don't have future tense. I mean, it means that if worries are less, then when the grammar, perhaps it's expressed, that you don't have this developed future tense in Rig Veda. And then you have Kala, it becomes slowly the primary meaning of Kal. If you say in Hindi or Indian languages, your Kal has come, that means your end has come. So in Vedas, you have the same term, but this meaning is different. It's the opportune, it means opportune moment. It doesn't mean end and death. It's still there. If you use the term Desh Kal in, say, mainstream in Hindi, then here the Kal doesn't mean the end or death. So we have still retained, just the more we come to know about this, say, history of South Asia, or also pre-agricultural, pre-cattle rearing, and then again division of labor in modern societies, then we can come to know that even in our daily life, the language that we use, the words that we use, the concepts that we use, we can scratch the surface and we can find out how was the daily life like, say, 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, because we use the same term but with entirely different meaning. So just you have to scratch the surface, and we can, with the knowledge of South Asia, we can do this kind of time travel also. Because as I have given this example, when and how does it happen that time becomes a resource? and our enemy. It has been pointed out very beautifully in this quotation from Bikram Nanda. He has studied Bonda highlanders in Adivasi community in Orissa. In contrast to the cyclic and solar concept of Boda subsistence production, new notion gives a linear meaning to time. If a day's labor earns rupees 5, then a day's labor implies the loss of that rupees 5. It means time can no, some microphone is on, I think somewhere. Yeah. So the most important point is here, this sentence, time can now be wasted. So we take it for granted that time shouldn't be wasted, but there was a particular point of time in the history of mankind when we realized that time is a resource and it can be used somewhere else much more usefully. So it is not something constant. We learned at some point of time that it is being wasted, and then we became restless. So this is very crucial, that it defines also that if we want to regain our control over time, of the time of our life, and the notion of work and the notion of self, they all are basically one and the same. So that's why they are the keywords that I have used here. That is, what is the positive cost? Imposed time poverty, time prosperity, atlas of changing time use pattern. Only there you express your behavior. It doesn't matter what you think, but what you do. How much time is actually spent at the workplace? How much time is there disposable time for your friends, for health, for nature, for community life? So they all are inseparable from each other. So the stress and time-oriented tasks, from task-oriented time, we travel to time-oriented tasks. So we have lesser time at our disposal, and that means there's goal conflict, and then we have a tougher, how to say, contest that where we should invest our time. So this is a new kind of crisis, which is called time poverty and stress. So that's why this question was very important. And then again, this very insightful comment by Bikram Nanda in his book, Contours of Continuity and Change, that was so crucial for us. So thank you. Then we can move to the next slide. So once you know about this time, work, and self, they are basically one and the same. Then again, you start questioning making the invisible visible again. For example, what we think that it is work, then basically it is not work, it is human activity. If you do something for your friends, then definitely money is the last thing on your mind, last thing that you expect from your friends, from your near and dear ones. So how did it happen? This whole history of civilization is the history of turning human activities into work. For example, singing, dancing, playing, hospitality are simple human activities. As soon as these activities turn into source of our livelihood, they become work. Instead of playing a game, it becomes our career. It becomes potentially a part of sports industry. Singing and dancing become entertainment industry. Hospitality becomes hospitality management. Welcoming a friend is, say, simple human activity, natural human activity, but it becomes an industry that's called hospitality management. So similarly, becoming mother has become surrogacy industry recently, and embracing someone has become it's just the most recent branch of work that human activity has turned into work. It's called professional cuddling. If you Google and find out all these, you can find more information about all these new industries. So because of loneliness, explosion of loneliness in modern societies, it started from England that they have now Minister for Loneliness. And then at the same time, we have this emergence of new branch where the people come and they just hug you, and for say half an hour, they get 50 pounds. And then this has become a source of income. There's now merciless competition among different, say, firms which are trying to outcompete each other for the, say, only because of price cutting. And then they, at the same time, they want to sell their services cheaper than the, say, potential competitors. So that's again, the same vicious circle begins here. And as you say, as I said, that this is singing, dancing, playing. So similarly, hugging your friend or hugging your near and dear ones, out of that now it has emerged a new industry. So history of civilization is the history of turning more and more human activities into work flows. So this is how you make the difference between all our work. It contains some natural human activity, but increasingly it becomes source of income, then it turns into work, and then it turns into your enemy, because you are at the mercy of some potential competitor who is ready to work for longer hours for lesser amount of money. So the best advantage is that for doing new South Asian studies, that we can, in our age, thanks to technology, we can find out what the daily life is like in Japan, what the daily life is like in America, what the daily life is like in other countries, and then we can learn a lot from them, that how to avoid those pitfalls. Where can we stop that the again a new activity turns into work. So thank you, Shraddha. The next point is this is the crucial distinction, and the next point is that this is called the life. It was absolutely normal when we were younger. I think also the last generation that they can remember it very well, that the Holi was at least month-long festival. So that's very important, that we should try to somehow this death of month-long festivals, it all should be brought back if you want to know, if you want to say build new communities in South Asia, then how to bring back those festivals, because the explosion of imposed time poverty among urban and middle class, because it happened right before our eyes and nobody noticed it. In 1950s, one male member with 8 to 10 hours day job was somehow able to provide for a family of 4 or 5 children and extended family members. In 2023, both his spouses work 12 hours, which equals a combined 22 to 24 hours every day. Add to that the share contributed by aging but economically active parents, that is 3 to 4 working hours whenever possible. In total, the shrunken domestic units spend 26 to 34 hours working every day at the workplace. Compared to earlier decades, they have to slog 3 to 4 times more in 24 hours. So this is not a normal daily life. Earlier it was 8 hours working day. Now we have at least 3 to 4 times more working hours within 24 hours. Either it can be 8 hours working day normal, or it can be 26 hours day working hours day normal. So this is again one can question this kind of say normal daily life, which remained invisible. Additionally, compared to 1950s or 60s, they are far more productive per hour or per minute spent at the workplace. Still, it is demanded from us that why are we less focused and why are we less motivated? So these are the basic questions, because there can be many changes in society, in religion, in politics, in say economy. But if these questions are not addressed, then perhaps one of the most fundamental questions remain unquestioned, or say the basic change doesn't take place, or the change where it really where the change should really take place won't be there. So that's why all other changes should be definitely there, but this is one of the core area which has gone unnoticed. So thank you. Then this is again one of the most radical demands, that if you distribute the wealth in the society, then this is one of very often a demand by the some of the radical movements. And this is the last point why we should study South Asian, new South Asian, why new South Asian studies is important. Emperor Harshvardhana of Kannauj was known to redistribute wealth from royal treasury to different segments of society every 5 years. However, this didn't stop the long lines of sections of the population who were now dependent on the benevolence of the king. Similar practices were observed in medieval Tibet. The critical takeaway is that redistributionism should be avoided. Historical patterns show that social changes or upheavals merely shifted work and power to new set of individuals. The objective ought not be or shouldn't be to redistribution, but the eradication or so evolution of all forms of redistributionism, thereby ending our dependence and domestication. So that's one of the biggest dangers of the artificial intelligence, and this is now coming out much more clearly in the way that earlier they were subservient to us, but now even they are the way we define our goals, it can be also co-defined by the artificial intelligence. So there it is very important that all forms of dependence and domestication should be questioned, and till now the most radical solutions were already realized, with the results that can be questioned very easily, that I have tried to point here out. So thank you, Shraddha. These were the 8 whys why we should study, because there can be many more such suggestions or by different activists or government measures. What should we do, say vis-a-vis these problems that are facing at the global level? Say aging societies, or say hierarchies and automation, or you can say redistribution of wealth. So all this can be, if you can do it at your own risk. If you don't have any idea of South Asian studies, then you can come to know that what we are suggesting has already been realized and it had its limitations. So that's why new South Asian studies, it's always about making invisible visible. And the second part is, then what? Because we have this already there. So thank you. Then we have the second part of the presentation. It is about 7 hows. So whys are already, this first part has been covered. Then the 7 hows, what does that mean? It is actually, first of all, it's a kind of a report that I must submit here, that in winter semester 2023, we organized an international workshop. So next slide, Shraddha. It was actually a kind of concept note that you prepared for an international workshop on a short story. It is called Thes by Franishnath Renu. So you all might know, or most of you might know about Renu ji and his writings. This short story was called Thes. I mean, Tisri Kasam was a well-known film with Raj Kapoor, and its songs are still immortal. Eternal songs of. So this is another short story by Renu, and we took this character, this protagonist, out of this short story, who is Sirchan. It's called Sirchan 2.0 Workshop, it was called. Sirchan is an artisan in North Bihar, a village, who feels humiliated at the hands of the women of local landlord family. Then we organized a workshop around this question, that you should imagine that there is Sirchan 1.0 of, say, 1965, then Sirchan 2.0 of 1985, then Sirchan 3.0 of 2020, Sirchan 4.0 of 2050. You can have different Sirchans, and you should try to say, kind of diary entries should be sent to us in 2 months, and there were international diary entries, because there is also English translation available of this story, of the story Thes. And especially the key guideline was how close to reality are your future diary entries. So for example, if you can write a kind of, say, in a kind of 1960s, say April 10th at 8 a.m., at 12 p.m., then again 4 p.m., 8 p.m., and 12 a.m. 1975, 19. So every entry should have at least 2-3, say, diary entries. So it should be of 1960s, 1975 to 2025. The point is that we have recorded all these entries, and we can go back to them after 5 years to their entries, or after 10 years again, so that this gap that is between lived experience and the projected future can be revisited, and that next time you should try to narrow down this gap. So there it was, we could find out that at least there are 7 spheres within every individual or collective sphere. The 7 spheres are that might help us to capture the moment in any flow, because we are trying to understand the change, and this kind of methodology at the level of, at macro level, at collective level, or also at individual level. So this all we can revisit these entries, and then we can point out that, and this is sphere. This is something like documentation of images of contesting images of futures at that particular point of time. So in 1960s, you might have an yearbook of India 1960, or Yearbook of India 1975. What you don't have is a kind of documentation of contesting image of futures that they had in 1960s, that they had in 1975, or they will have in 2025. And then again, after 10 years, at regular intervals, we can come back to these say lived experiences and these documented image of futures. So these are the new hows that can be definitely applied to South Asia, and definitely it shouldn't be restricted only to South Asia. So thank you. What are these 7 spheres? At least 7 spheres within every individual, or say collective, at collective level. So there are, each and every moment has these 6-7 worlds. One can say world of things, world of words, world of events, So can we move towards, say, next slides? So here you can see 7 hows that what all should we question. If you are trying to reconstruct daily life of Sirchan in 1875, then we should try to find out world of goods, objects, and instruments. For example, 1960s, the use of wooden iron bill hook to hone, and he's an artisan and shape bamboo, and he's basket maker. Sirchan is so cane liana. In 1990s, iron bill hook were replaced by factory manufactured sharpening tools and other new tools, and very soon they will be replaced by, say, software, say, technology. So in 21st century, the arrival of smartphones, video chats, use of artificial intelligence may be the part of the diary entries. So that's the way you can document the, say, this catalog, so that one can find out the world of goods, and but what are the world of worries, what is the world of worries and anxieties, key fears at different phases. So very often we can get this documentation, we don't know what the people were thinking way back then, like what were their key fears. And this there definitely, if you know more about, say, arts and, say, dance and, say, culture and literature, so then you can, again, this inner world and this all can be documented at individual level, at micro level, at macro level, also at collective, I mean the level of, uh, say, big collectivities or communities. So world of social and political events that can be documented. For example, which events took place or were taking place. For example, Bhudan movement by Vinoba Bhave, Jayaprakash Narayan in 1960s and 1970s. What events can be anticipated? So these entries try to cover all these points, and these entries were sometimes they have some interesting insights that I would like to discuss with you. That first we should let me cover these 7 words now. Then we have, for example, after this we have uh, world of words, concepts, and ideas. So you can document also the age of different words. For example, Swaraj was the key word during freedom struggle. Then you had this Girmitia, that was the keyword in 1850s. Then you had Notebandi, that's the keyword, lockdown, Netflix. So they directly, you can have the different phases of life that can, it's a kind of thick description of each and every moment. So all the information, all the knowledge that we can get, that can be, that all this, nothing will fall down. Everything can be here collected, and it can be used for this description of each and every moment, of each and every present, or each and every present has different moments. For example, its own image of future, its own image of past. So world of words and concepts. Then you have world of, for the first time, the first is goods, and then you have goods and things. They are very concrete things, and the world of, they are visible. For example, gadgets, and this world of words and concepts, they are invisible. So we are trying to cover both the worlds. So this is the third point. Then the next slides. So here is the world of nature, plants, and animals, because in the age of Anthropocene, the new term that has come up is rewilding. So it was also supposed to be something very radical, but it is not radical anymore. It has become part of the mainstream, because with the speed of destruction and extinction of plant and animals, there are definitely attempts of de-extinction. But here we can see that it's equally important to know also, so how far the destruction of forest and the animals and plants was, because at the center of our inquiry shouldn't be only human beings or their well-being, but also non-human beings, also other living beings. So therefore, this is the cover page of one of the most important mainstream journal. It is called MIT Technology Review. And this technology review doesn't talk only about technology, its advantage, its glories of technology, but the speed of destruction is so fast that they were also compared to bring out this special issue. And it's about rewilding Earth, because it's not about not only conserving, but nature should be left at its own. And therefore, there are some areas between Germany and Poland which has been left to rewild itself, because this natural biodiversity cannot be replaced by artificial biodiversity. So just I wanted to introduce here this new term, and that has become recently also part of the mainstream, that not only reforestation, but now the talk is of rewilding. And that's why it's important to catalog it also in the, if it go back to say 60s, 70s, also the last centuries, with the help of these diary entries. Number 5 is that how much is the world of your close relations, your friends and family life has changed. What was really shocking to me about Japan, that now they are, you can hire people for the funeral rites, for the last rites of the after death of your family member. And only recently some attempts have started in India also, that because you don't have time to attend the last say funeral rituals, so you can hire some people. So this is how the events that your community events, that your family events, slowly the entry is there of event management companies, so far it is possible. So there is the world of close relations, friends and family life, in what ways the world of these relations had changed, and it looks like, say, or the what looks like impending changes, how various phases of life, that is childhood, working years and old age, might be represented. So this can be areas which can be covered if you want to write. I mean, this was a part of this exercise that we did, and there are so many there were so many, say, diary entries from the contestants from different parts of the world, and some of them were also quite unexpected, because it was a story about 1960s in North India and North Bihar, and then it was students were taking part in this contest who were from, say, Germany, from Switzerland, and they were imagining that what the Sirchan 2040 shall look like now. So there you have to cover also the world of your close friends, friendships, say history of friendship, family life, and relatives. So thank you. Then you have this last 2 points, that inner world of the protagonist, that what could be the key fears, worries, and hopes for Sirchan 203040? What were the different liminalities? That what kind of end of the, what kind of say at the limits, at the ends of your, at the end of your, say, horizon of imagination, uh, what are the, what are the different kinds of, it can be put in different way, that uh, at different points of your life you have different images of past and futures. So there were different liminalities also. This liminality can be also used in a new way. So the, of different bubbles from life at different points of time. And what are the number number 7 is world of self-image and image of others. What are the changes in Sirchan's own identity or self-image in the in image of others from his point of view? How far is the inner cartography of the selves of Sirchan produced by the social context, and how much is he um, is he producing it? I mean, there might be this history of how do you negotiate your life. You have your own cartographies, the way you imagine yourself in, say, pre-industrial societies and in modern societies, the way you deal with time, this all changes, and there also the image, the self image also changes. So this flow, this whole thing can be documented very easily, so you can go into detail, at the same time you can come out of it. So that's the best advantage of this kind of doing new South Asian studies, that you can go into it, into the bubbles, into the spheres, into these 9 spheres, and at the same time you can stay out of it, you can observe the flow. And therefore this documentation leaves space open for every kind of thick description, the knowledge coming from all the branches of knowledge. That means there can be history, geography, politics, all this can be. So this is a kind of methodology that can be applied at micro subjective level, also at objective and macro level. So about the image, because finally at the end of the day we don't act and react, say we actually act and react upon the image of others. We don't act and react upon this image of individual, image of say countries, image of events. So what is the image that we have? We act upon the image of others, not upon the individuals, not upon the so, and that's why this question becomes important, that what are the changes, in the Sirchan's own identity or self-image, or in images of the others from his point of view. So these are the 7 points how we can how to say that every moment can be captured, at the same time we can stay out of that flow, and perhaps that will open up new possibilities, that we can intend to dialogue with everyone with this say documentation of different kind of images of futures, and that will also help us in overcoming the boundaries between experts and non-experts. So because this alienation between different disciplines, they can also talk to each other if they are discussing about, say, what shall the life look like in age 2050 on April 10th. What are your projections at 8 a.m., at 8 p.m.? I'm this kind of diary entries. So this is just one of the ways organizing workshops, and then we can say different bubbles can come together, and the more diverse these bubbles are, the better it is for our overview. So these are the 7 hows, and there were 8 whys. That why do we need new South Asian studies, and how shall we practice it? This all is only work in progress and suggestion. So thank you. Then we come to the last slides. So these are the words I hope that we can now recapitulate. That is women's question, religion, caste question, technophilia, ecological collapse, rewilding, anti-anthropocentrism, I haven't done, aging societies, automation and hierarchies, role of artificial intelligence, loss of interspecies communication, I haven't done that, work, time, money, self and other, and liminalities. So all these key questions, perhaps I could add some new content to them, or perhaps I could add some new keywords to our, if it is possible for our discourses. And some of the key concepts, if feel free to question about all these new concepts if you feel like, or definitely we'll move towards next slides. So these are the this is an example of this book that came out so in the last century, that there were 2 images of the future. One is Brave New World, and the other is 1984. So both the authors are somehow related to South Asia. I mean, the author of George Orwell, author of 1984, was born in South Asia. He had his say his own experience, and the way he tried to process that information and that experience. This all is there, but more directly, you will find that the key concepts of this automated world, how shall it look like, and shall automation realization of our desires lead to new hierarchies or our emancipation? So Brave New World is one of the most important novels in that way, and it's also rooted in say South Asian history and society, because its key concepts are also from South Asia. And the other book is, next book is, so this book is you have Ancient Futures. It's based on the experience of its author, Helena Norberg Hodge. So she's a Swedish, say, thinker, teacher, and also philosopher. I mean, she's an activist, and way back in 90s, she started realizing the importance of local cultures, how to re-indigenize, because she was in Ladakh in 1975 when it was opened for the first time. And then she asked some basic questions that she was interested in the housing colonies for the poor people in Ladakh in 1975 when for the first time she came to this place, or for the first time this place was also opened up. Then they said that we don't have housing colonies for poor people because we don't have poor people. And this same scholar, after 5 to 10 years, heard the same tourist guide talking to some other, say, tourists, that please help us, we need money because we are very poor. So it actually, they set this train of thinking, and she actually came up with this: how much can we learn from this pre-modern Ladakh society? That is again different kind of, this is again another image of future which is not technophilic. At the same time, it has its own problems. The way how to say, I'm of the opinion that the way it glorifies the traditional hierarchies, but at the same time we can see that either the future of mankind has now at least 2 contesting images of the futures of mankind. Either it can be ancient futures, which is not technophilic. On the other hand, you have Brave New World, or you have some, say, Ray Weil. Then you have, of course, Ray Weil, who is of the opinion that in coming 20 years, biological intelligence will melt into artificial intelligence. So for orientation, he means it is 2045. And he tries to sum up the speed of changes that we had in last 2000 years, that will be reduced to only, say, 20 years. I mean, the speed of the scale of change in coming 20 years will be much more than what we have experienced in last 2000 years or more than that. So that's another image of, say, this singularity, or you can say Brave New World of Aldous Huxley, or Ray Kurzweil of singularity, or you have two other philosophers. One is this Helena Norbert Hodge, and other thinkers are also John Jerjan, Kevin Tucker, Laila Abdul Rahim. They think of primitive future, because in the long run, nature will always win. The point I'm trying to underline here, that very often these contesting image of futures of mankind, they have their roots also, and some of the key ideas are in the history and society of South Asia. So that's how I wanted to underline why it is important for us to know more about history and societies of South Asia, and it will help us in perhaps organizing, or say creating new communities which are much more stress-free, and we have month-long festivals back. One of the key features of these communities should be like, and how can we do it, which is which was the main idea behind my proposal of new South Asian studies. So that is the end of my presentation, and at the end of it, you have also a kind of select bibliography. Perhaps we can move over to that. Shraddha? So these are the books on Maldives. It was important because Maldives is going to be drowned very soon, and how they are responding to it. Then you have another response from Bhutan. So these are the two responses from South Asia to ecological crisis. Then you have different understanding of religion here in Islam. And then you have Bob Black that I have already mentioned. Then this article is very important. That is critique of neo-futurist vision of the decline of the work, that it won't be any kind of decline of the work. Then what we can learn from South Asia. This is the book by Detlef Kantovsky. Ramdayal Munda talks about that, how Asur could foresee the impact of the social impact of new technology, and how shall it lead. Asur could foresee it, and therefore they reduce voluntarily. So this is short introduction to this bibliography, and then we'll go to the last slide now. So the books, then History of Bhutan, which questions also gross domestic happiness concept. And then comes the key question, how to revisit South Asian societies for stress-free communities and month-long festivals. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for your attention and active participation throughout this session. Your engagement has made this workshop genuinely enriching. As we end this session, we have one final opportunity to engage with our essential speaker. To all the participants, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box or use the raise hand feature. Once recognized, you can unmute yourself to ask your question directly. Yes, Soma, please go ahead.
Sir, I wanted to ask that how do psychological and emotional factors differentiate work from other forms of human activity?
Can you say it again and much more, but slowly and clearly?
How do psychological and emotional factors differentiate work from other forms of human activity?
Psychology and work, those are the keywords that I can understand from your question. I mean, how are they interrelated to each other? The voice is
Soma,
not
you
very
can
clear.
type your question in the chat box.
Yeah.
Of course. Anyone else who has a question?
So far, I could understand this question. It is about that I mean, all that I can say in this context about time and work is that earlier, for example, you couldn't earlier you couldn't sell your labor round the clock, but once electricity came, it was possible to work longer. And now after internet, you can earn money 24 hours. So that means this restlessness has expanded itself, and this opportunity cost that has expanded, that gives birth to so many mental health problems, because you are constantly thinking, and with the increasing technologization of our daily life, you are constantly worried. And that's why all these things are for me one and the same, interrelated, that how activity we should actually reduce our work to be again to activities. Otherwise, the moment it becomes work, then what happens, that anti-being becomes the precondition of our being. Because only when you are ready to work for longer hours for lesser amount of money compared to your potential competitor, or say if service is being marketed, or goods are being marketed, then there should be always price cutting. There should be always, so they should be sold cheaper than the previous level of pricing. And that's why it's a kind of race of towards self-strangulation collective. You don't need somebody else who should stand beyond and outside of you. You are more than enough. I mean, you don't need any kind of torture chamber, because time is more than enough. Because you are always suffering from this kind of pressure that I am not using my time properly. And number two, that it can be always excused like this, that it's your own fault. Earlier at least you could make some excuses, but now everything is available online, so it's your own fault if you cannot deal with time properly. And that's how it's a kind of as Korean thinker has pointed out, that this whole depression is actually nothing else. This is widespread depression. The more developed you are, the more time poorer we become, and therefore this widespread nothing else but the biggest war that mankind is waging against itself. So these are this is the kind of interrelationship between work, time, and stress. And it's always the fact that moment you get the news that your last date has been extended, then you feel elated. That means, and the work expands according to available time. So there is something in it always, and that has to be questioned. Not that how to. So this work-life balance is also a myth, because um, it's not in your hands. If somebody else is there ready to work for longer hours for lesser amount of money, then you have to outdo him, outperform him. And therefore how to say this whole that's how you can understand that how in last 30 to 40 years middle class is just spending 3 to 4 times more time at the workplace. And there was no compulsion. This is called purely economic coercion. Traditional societies had earlier forms of coercion. It was kind of with a whip, or with a, say, naked violence or tradition. But modern coercion is only purely economic coercion. You don't need somebody else to strangulate you. You do it unto yourself. Earlier, the slave traders used to bring people to the slave market. Now you do it unto yourself. You pay the money to come to the say human smugglers to the countries where you get paid better. So this is like actually the relationship between work, time, and mental health, and that's why mental health crisis is a global crisis. Sorry if I didn't understand your question properly, Soma, but you can always, I mean, this conversation can always continue, and my email is there, and you can always contact me, or you can write your question again in the clearly, or if you feel like if I haven't answered your question properly. Thank you.
So
Yes,
I would
Priya,
like
please ask your question.
So I would like to read Soma's question, which is, how do psychological and emotional factors differentiate work from other forms of human activity?
Yeah, I mean, this question, because all that I can underline here is the fact that human activity is different from work, and work itself means that you have to how it becomes your main source of your income. And the moment any activity becomes your main source of income, then it has its psychological impact. I mean, because you do it unto yourself. And worse that happens here about work and mental health, that what you are and what do you think and what you should think, is not anymore in your hands. A psychological expert knows more about you, and he can tell you what you should think and what should not think, what you shouldn't think. So the whole control of yourself is also somehow here um, endangered. So these are the and that's why you can see that this kind of boom of say psychological I mean, when I left Germany, left India, went to there was way back in 19 say around 2002 or 3 when I came back. Then it has become new normal that in schools you had the psychological counseling centers. When we were there in the schools, there was nothing like this. So this is how this new normal it becomes, which was not actually which are actually earlier only a kind of exotic thing, not axiomatic. And that's the development onward march of history, that what was exotic, it becomes axiomatic. That how can a school exist without psychological counseling center? But the fact is that when we went to the schools, there was nothing like this. It doesn't mean that we didn't have problems, but it all has to do with in a student life, all the knowledge that has been produced in last 5,000 years by the mankind. There's explosion of knowledge again, and at the same time the time window that we have is only 10 to 12 years, and it is going to again the next phase of this knowledge boom is going to be there. And all that has to be answered in the examination hall, where you are left completely alone in 2 hours, 3 hours. And that's how you can see that even at the student level, this mental health crisis is not only that teachers and parents and schools, they have become enemies of the children, or children are responsible, or teachers are responsible, or the parents are responsible. But the main thing is that this huge knowledge load and the limited amount of time window that you have, and that also leads to psychological crisis. So that's how I would see it. I mean, this kind of psychological crisis, and the point is that the lack of disposable time that we have, it's increasingly becoming less and less.
Can
So,
I
I wanted to ask something. Just like you said that, how psychological stress and all is increasing. So, and work-life balance is a myth. So, what should we do about it? Like, we are either our work suffers or our household suffers, and we are constantly struggling to make out. So, what should we do then? Where should our focus be then? Should we focus only on work then and leave our household?
No, it is it's not an easy question, and definitely I am not an expert to give an answer. The thing is that very often it's important not to answer the questions, but also, I mean, very often the roots of the problems are not in the answers that we give, but in the questions that we ask. For example, it was never questioned that work-life balance, how to achieve it, but it was never questioned that is work-life balance at all possible. If somebody else is a long queue of people who is already ready to work for lesser money for longer hours, then this is a kind of mirage that we can keep on chasing, and that's how you will see that even if you are successful in the countries like Japan, people die alone and lonely. And this is, the more you know about Japan, the more you understand about future of India. Because the problems that we are facing right now, it's the mild Japan is already there. I mean, there's this kudokushi, that means old people dying alone. Look at the old age homes in India, and the number is going to, I mean, it will, the whole population of young population in India is more than the total population of Europe, and we don't have infrastructure, and we don't have. So the point is that we have to look at this, the whole question in a different way. We have to learn to perhaps ask new questions than trying to somehow become more efficient in using our time. There's no wonder this is the increasing number of burnouts. Or every day, 38 or 36 students commit suicide in India. When I started pursuing this question, then it was only 16 students every day. Just imagine the number of students. That's the best phase of your life. And then you are the students who are suffering silently. It's much more than that. And these are the numbers that we know because Government of India is so open. These are the numbers given by the parliamentarians on the floor of Indian Parliament. In Germany and Switzerland, so far I know, we have organized a seminar on stress in the daily life of middle classes in China, Japan, India, and Germany. Then we came to that the governments here have a policy. They don't want to publish the data because it will set off a chain reaction. And then you come to know about this golden rod in India. For example, have you heard about the golden rod? That ceiling fans stress themselves if their young students want to commit suicide in the hostels, in IIT, IIMs. And this engineer was celebrated in the WhatsApp of middle classes that how innovative he is, because and he has established a factory in Bombay. And last time I heard of him, he had supplied 50,000 golden rods. The same thing is in China. There are nets around some factories because young workers just jump down from the roof of the factory. The highest number of young workers committing suicide is in China. In Switzerland, there are some bridges which have been properly covered because people simply go and jump off the bridge. And just imagine milk and honey is flowing. What is the problem? I mean, and the problem is somewhere deeper. I mean, because you're constantly time and work, you're the way yourself, it has become, as I said, anti-being becomes a precondition of our being. And then you're just trying to, one should, and that's why I ask these questions. I question work itself. I question time itself. I questioned in my presentation that how in Rig Veda, Kala, the same word they use, but Kala didn't mean, as you say in Hindi or Indian language, your Kala has come, tumhara Kal aa gaya, your end has come, your death has come. But in Rig Veda, it is opportune time. It's not death and the end. So this history of change in the meaning is the history of change in the forms of society in which we are living. So our inner world also changes. And without realizing, we have to, I mean, we don't need to, that's the advantage of studying at the university and doing, I mean, this kind of, so being knowledge worker, that you can compare and contrast different, because otherwise you are, say, always out of breath because you don't have time to die even. So there's no time left to think about what is happening to us. And the moment you realize that how come that you are working 3 to 4 times more every day, new middle class, and how come nobody questioned it? So making invisible things, which I mean, that's the more difficult thing. Most difficult is to make what is visible, what is in front of us. And and that's why we are extremely busy. That not a single minute should be wasted, and we should. This is numbers. Numbers have also been questioned because everything boils down to top 10. And if you are top 3, then you should go to somehow 3. So, I mean, how much is your BP? How much is sugar? How much do you earn? How much is your mobile number? So, a Greek philosopher has said that we are ruled by numbers way back then. But today it is much more a reality. And among Adivasis, that is the most surprising thing, or the most pleasant thing, or the most pleasant surprise to come to know about through anthropology, that they don't count, they cannot count more than 20. And one of the activists told me that in Jharkhand, that the moment they start teaching them numbers more than 20, then that's the biggest hurdle that they have, because they don't need more than that numbers. So it's not that they are incapable of, and their society has much more names. I mean, even plants and animals, and they are relatives. I mean, this continuation is there in our life also. But for them, tiger is maternal uncle. Everything is a kind of plants, and that was the meaning of this term, interspecies communication. Interspecies communication, that there is a language which is older than words. This concept has been introduced by one very important thinker. That means the moment you stop communicating with somebody something, only then you can see it objectively, and then you can just pounce upon it. You can how to say, do your science upon it. And earlier we could communicate in this language which was older than words with plants and animals, which is something understood among pre-modern tribals, among even peasant communities. They know how to communicate with animals and plants. And this is something new discovery in 2011 officially. It took so much of time for mainstream scientists that animals are also intelligent beings. And they also claim that elephants are also intelligent, and whales are also intelligent, and prairie dogs are intelligent. So this is the problem, that we have to question what is intelligence here. We have to question what is number here, what is work here, what is time here. And we should take advantage of the fact that we are, say, at the universities. Then we have this access. Otherwise, if you are not a knowledge worker, then the daily life is only about, say, whole life is just spent doing only urgent work. You never come to do your real work for which you are here. So generations have passed only somehow finishing off the urgent work. And we could never live our life. We were simply spending our lives. And then we can understand, so long you are living, you are spending your life, you are not living your life, then no wonder that we have situation that we have in America, that you never know who will be there at the airport or in the school or in the, say, shopping mall with blazing gun, and he wants to kill each and everyone there. Because again, I will repeat that milk and honey is flowing. What is the problem there? That's the way we think. But the problem is that if you don't have somebody, how to say, the connect with the human beings, with the this all these things are absent there. So partly one can understand why such say events will not take place among Adivasis at all, or not so easily at all. And the reason behind it is that you just keep on, say, job hopping. After 3-4 times you were, say, hired and fired, then you don't have any interest in getting another, how to say, advanced training courses for some new job. And definitely the death of friendship is part of it. The moment you start, how to say, the moment you start bookkeeping mentality, that I shouldn't waste my time, then that's actually, it poisons everything in our life, our relationships, our and then what happens is suddenly you withdraw yourself, and then you stop living life, you start spending your life. Then apparently you can have everything, and one fine morning you decide to kill everyone before killing yourself. And the mild form of this, Japan and America, is already in India. Road rage you can see, and because people are waiting, you never know who is going to explode when and how, because it's not it's a kind of society, and it's a time has become around him. Nobody's interested in investing his time, because every time is, how to say, every minute is a kind of battlefield. And therefore one has to learn, if you are in humanities, then that's the biggest advantage of doing humanities, literature, anthropology, sociology, that you can trace the development of when did time become resource, when did time become animals become an object, when was it something that it became normal that we have to work 26 hours every day, even if we have only 24 hours. So just make use of it, that you are there. Then you can question. And the best advantage about South Asia is, as I said, that we have a still pre-agricultural, cattle rearing communities. So if you look, if you try to find out, or as I said about Khasi community, about Bhil community, then you will find that they have entirely different notion of career, or they don't have anything like career. What is money? I mean, if you try to, because when I surveyed them, then I asked them, what do you do with the money? Then, because they are generously being helped by government of India, and they are giving a piece of land, they're being given a piece of land, a pair of oxen, some money to settle down. And Adivasi development officers are really puzzled, because they're not interested at all in settling down. Why should they at all? Because they know other life, which is not worried about say future and money. And that's why in Rig Veda you don't have future tense, or very less. So these worries also are expressed in the grammar. Is not something some kind of innocent exercise. It has also, say, impact on society where it was generated or it came into existence. So that's why in the history of grammar, in the history of the key terms, as I said, for example, village, the grammar, it was not something settled village, because the meaning of grammar is gaman. It was mobile unit, because we were hunter-gatherers for 99% of the history of mankind. So then you can understand that you have to question meaning of village, meaning of time, meaning of work in our language, and we can compare and contrast with. So that's the biggest advantage of, say, studying at the universities, that you can step out and observe the flow, and then you can find out that where it start. And this was, how to say, normal day life was never like this. It was, what we have today is neither normal, it shouldn't happen daily, and life, it has nothing to do with life. So that's why I raise these questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. The key thing is
Any
that
other
how
questions?
to bring back month-long festivals.
If there are no further If there are no further questions, we will proceed to the final segment of this session. Thank you so much, sir. Before we conclude, we eagerly await your feedback and the completion of the assignment within 24 hours. Your active participation has been the cornerstone of this session. Thank you, faculty members, participants, and our dear audience from Germany to join us. We look forward to your presence in tomorrow's session by Dr. Nakul Kundra, Associate Professor at the University of Allahabad, Prayagraj, who will speak on the topic Student Life and Indian Values. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sparing time with us.
Thank you.